Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We're here to chat about humane leadership in a way that's real and relatable, tackling work-life challenges and offering practical advice to navigate tough career decisions. Whether you're leading a team or navigating your own career, we've got you covered. I'm Chris King, a Fortune 100 IT leader, and with me is Roberto Torres, a startup engineering leader. We'll dive into real-world stuff, share experiences, and offer guidance on leading with compassion while keeping your career on track. Today, we'll discuss what is a key characteristic humane leaders look for in job candidates. Hey, Roberto, how's things going?
Fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing good, and this is actually, it'll be interesting to see your perspective versus mine. You have gone on job interviews, within the last year. I have not, but from my experience in doing interviews of candidates that I was going to hire, I'm really looking for teammates, and not that I'm looking for humane teammates. I'm looking for teammates that I get along with, that will just be, uh, you know, compassionate. They'll be articulate, but in general, I'm just looking for what I would call good people.
Yeah, and it is aligned to the culture that you'll be that you are in that company or that you are aiming for. Um, yes, indeed, I was in several interviews for the last year, but I think the most important thing is from two sides, from the employer and the candidate. From the employer, they're looking for, yes, specific people, either IC or manager, who is going to help them is not is solve a certain kind of problem. But when you interview a candidate, it has to be the one who is aligned to the culture that your company is in. And the candidate, it could have either two ways, two paths. I target any company, regardless of the culture. What I want is a job, or what I did, because I was looking for a certain kind of culture, as you mentioned, which is compassionate, which has communication, which foster not only productivity, but foster rapport, fosters teamwork. I was looking for that. So when I had interviews and I detect that those traits were in that company, I said, I'm stepping out of the way. So yeah.
Yep, yep. And I think, when candidates, and what triggered this kind of discussion was this article on CNBC's website. Um, in my own experience, and I have seen this just through interactions with people that were waiting to be interviewed, right? This is going years back, right? I'm one of six people. They're going in for interviews. You're kind of all there rotating to different people. So you actually get to see some of the people you're competing with. Well, if they're not very friendly, they don't say hi to, even though it's competition, they don't say hi to the other people. They don't acknowledge their presence. They're rude to the administrative staff that's scheduling and moving them around. You know, those are just not good job candidates. They may be technically fantastic, right? They may have the most advanced degree, or they may have very advanced technical skills. But the bottom line is if they're a jerk, right? If they're mean to the administrative staff, if they're not friendly and saying hi to the other candidates who might be potential teammates, maybe we're hiring three people for the role, right? And they're just not friendly people. Ultimately, this is going to mean you as a humane leader are going to have some very tough conversations trying to get that person to be a better team player. And in my own experience, I find it much easier to hire it from the beginning than train it into people. Now, as humane leaders, we always try and coach our people for success, right? I'm not saying you cannot change people, but if you're at the hiring process and you've got five different candidates, one of them super, super strong technically, right? And really could make an impact on day one, but they're condescending to the administrative staff. They were mean to the receptionist desk on the way into the building. I'm here for that interview. It's 1:05. We're supposed to see me at 1. Oh, wow. Those are probably just not going to be worth your time. I would steer clear of that. I'm looking for people that are like, hey, I understand it. It's a gigantic company. Schedules get moved around. Last thing parents have children, they get sick, so now they got to bring in a different person to do my interview because the person who was going to do it is home with a sick child. I understand that happens. That's
Yeah,
the kind of person I want to hire, right? They understand real world situations. They kind of take those setbacks in stride. They're like, hey, these kinds of things happen. Let's roll with it and get it done. Is there somebody else I can meet with today? Even if they do have to reschedule me, okay, I understand it's inconvenient. That's not great. But if I get really angry about it, that's not going to be a good sign to the person hiring. So I would rule that person out, even if I thought they were going to be technically great for the role. Because things go wrong in life, right? Things go wrong at the company, and somebody who doesn't have that kind of patience and acknowledgement that sometimes we got to be flexible, probably not going to fit well with me. As humane of a leader as I am, I
yeah,
do have some boundaries.
yeah, totally understandable. And the thing is, you spot it, but I must add, you must mimic the person greetings and when you got to the company. We had two things. Either it is remotely through Zoom, Google Meet, or etc., or we arrive to a company. And usually, when you arrive to the company, you must smile at the people who are greeting you regardless of the position that they are in. It is a receptionist, if it's security guard, if it doesn't matter. At least you have to mimic. And what I did before was when I arrived to companies to get in interview was to smile. At first, I approach the receptionist and I smile, and they mimic back. You know, rather than say, "Hey, I'm going to that office to have an interview," no, I mimic it. And even though people might be harsh towards me, to whom are you looking? With whom are you dating? Well, without those kind of harsh words or phrases, I didn't move. But I kept smiling. I say, okay, calmly, I'm going with him, with her, etc. And it happens the same when you get into a remote conversation, a remote meeting. You have to smile or do something. For instance, what I usually used to say was, "Hey, Chris, thanks for having me today." And people appreciated that. And when the interview ended, I said, "Hey, Chris, have a great afternoon." I'm waving. This waving show what it does is that the person who is interviewing does the same. Or in the opposite, if I'm interviewing someone, I will wait because I think that education is really important by being a humane person, actually, you know.
I'm trying to stay away from the word humane in this because our folks that are doing their interviews may not be super
Be
familiar with it, right? And I'm
okay.
thinking about, if I'm giving you advice as you're going to meet with these people, is to realize that you're really trying to be self-aware of the personality you're projecting. Because if I'm going to sit down with the interview with you, Roberto, I want to make sure I project my personality, which is, look, I am detail oriented, but not to the point that it causes group conflict. Hey, that's really cool statue you have on your shelf behind you, Roberto. Did you win a trophy for your whatever it is? All right. So I'm into details, but I want to know about you and how you spend your time and things like that. And so you'll say, wow, Chris is a friendly guy. He's got attention to detail. We need that in this role, but he's friendly, right? He's going to get along with everybody in the team, and having that kind of self-awareness that, hey, if I'm grumpy, be aware that I'm grumpy. So now I need to be aware I'm grumpy and say, look, if I want this role and I'm grumpy right now because something went wrong or I got cut off in traffic and I was worried about being late, so it made me grumpy. You need to turn that off in the interview, right? Because they're going to think that's how you are all the time. And so you've got to really kind of be self-aware and reflect. I'm going into this interview. I may have had a bad experience commuting to the office to meet with you, or maybe I got laid off from my other job, so I'm still kind of angry about that. You can't let that come through. You don't want to show that. Why you can still be angry about the other job letting you go, but you need to make sure that what you're presenting is the core of who you really are, which I would hope is someone who does strive to do a good job, does pay attention to instructions, but is easy to get along with. They're self-aware and saying, look, I'm not going to be mean to the receptionist. I'm not going to be mean to the security guard. I'm respectful to everybody at every level of the company, whether I think I'm shaking hands and introducing myself to the security guard or I'm introducing myself to the CEO. Your perspective on those people should all be equal as humans, and that I just want to get along with all of them.
Yeah, indeed. And with us, as you mentioned, of the position, the respect, it is the same. You treat them with respect and you trust that people will talk to you and respect. And let's say I have spoken of me being a candidate and being me to me towards people. But what about the other side of the coin? What are these kind of tactics or strategies that we use with candidates to understand who really they are? First of all, we must have a foundation of respect. That is, we cannot lower, excuse me, get higher in our voice or scream to say something. We must. This is a safe space. Usually, what I do is this is a safe space in which we discuss, you and I interview, and what I say is that I don't go to the my questions won't go in a peak, to get something out of you. I don't do something to get your emotions out of control. What I do is talk as what I talk with any members of the team. But one thing that is important is when I'm interviewing someone, what I expect them to do is turn on your camera. Turn on your camera, Stephen. That is so important. So we got into the interview. You don't have your camera on. I'll say, hey, Chris, could you turn on your camera? I think it will be better for us to see each other. And then, dependent on the answer, I might say yes or I might say no. I might say no if someone will say, but I never turn it on. That is the first one. The second one might be, oh, okay, let me turn on my camera, and you see this strong face of people say, oh, why am I showing the camera? It's a sign of respect that you must do. It's like when you used to go maybe to an interview of a company who always wear jacket and tie. If you don't arrive in that same of wear, yeah, the
Clothing.
dress code,
Yep.
yeah,
Dress code. Yep.
clothing, yeah. They might say, well, maybe this is not the place that you're looking for. And the same happens regardless of the clothing. It is with the culture that you're in. In a startup, what you're looking for is someone who has a lot of eagerness, who are open-minded, which has a lot of tolerance, frustration tolerance, all these little traits that together it is the definition of a startup. So I think it's really important to us to observe and to have bias on the excuse me, to have unbias of who and we are interviewing.
Yeah, do they have the self-awareness to recognize
Yeah.
that, hey, this company I'm at is a startup and they're all in blue jeans and polo shirts and t-shirts, then, you may dress up a little bit more than that, but showing up in a suit and tie also shows your lack of situational awareness and self-awareness that that's not going to fit there, and that again, it isn't the only factor in an interview, but you're going to be with these people 8 hours a day or more, 5 days a week. You really have to get along, right? And they have to be a good cultural fit. And if they aren't self-aware, it just is one thing that is really then hard to help them adjust their culture, right? Because if they're not self-aware, no matter how humane of a leader you are, it's going to be really hard to get them to change. Really hard. The article mentioned, and this actually happened to me once early in my career when I was looking at potentially leaving the company, is they said one of the things that they do is they take them to lunch and they then want to observe how do they treat the wait staff, the table staff. When the waiter comes to take the order, are they rude to them? If they get part of the order wrong, do they complain loudly, or do they just ask, "Oh, hey, I didn't want it with, maybe they're have a gluten allergy or whatever, right? Hey, I needed the gluten-free bun. Can you just please take it back and get me the gluten-free?" Or are they, "Hey, I ordered gluten-free." Which one do you want to hire? Which of those two people, right? So, and that actually happened to me on one of my job interviews where they took me to lunch, and I guarantee you they were observing more so about how you treated the wait staff and the bus boy and all that kind of and the hostess and all that kind of stuff, more so than anything I answered question wise during the lunch.
I agree, yes. And well, you had luck. You had luck because you were taken to lunch. But many people doesn't have this luxury. So you must behave at all times the same. And I think that it is not only when you are being in an interview, it's how you answer. For instance, you mentioned at the beginning of the episode that maybe you had to cancel or postpone the interview. How would you write the answer? Hey, Chris, I'm sorry you have an interview in a couple of hours, but something came up to reschedule it. And then maybe you will have, depending on the answer, if people will understand, hey, don't worry, Chris, when can we do it? Or if you say the wrong words, it will be, but I assign time to this today. And uh, so you have to be aware of the situation because that might happen to you. You might write to the interviewer and say, hey, Chris, I'm sorry. I was going to be at the interview in a couple of hours, but my boss set me up a meeting that I cannot uh, that I had to be in. I'm sorry. Can we reschedule it? But imagine that you said it in the wrong way. It will take you points away.
Yep, yep. And I think, if you're someone listening and you have a job interview coming up, also keep in mind, I don't recommend necessarily faking. You need to be aware that you're going to be judged on these kinds of personality things, but don't be completely fake about it, right? Don't be, hey, if you're somewhat shy and reserved, don't be gregarious. Don't be this big, loud, and excited interview candidate because you won't be able to maintain that personality long term. And then it may not be a good cultural fit for you. So even if you act like you're not and get hired, you may find that you don't enjoy the company much because they're hiring you based on a personality that wasn't real. So while being aware of some of these things can help you in your job interviews, I would not radically change my personality to try and get a job because ultimately, it needs to be a good fit for both of you, a good fit for the company and a good fit for you. Just be self-aware of some of the things that you might do out of characteristic because of the stress. Hey, I'm in the stress of an interview and it's late. I got here late and now I'm acting really stressed and now I'm mean to the receptionist. Well, don't do that, right? Because that's not normally you, but something bad happened on the way. Don't do that. Don't do that. Be aware. That's not changing your personality. That's just being aware of some of the things that people watch for in interviews, and and you don't want to damage your chances unfairly.
Yeah. One thing that I must that I must say about a startup is you mentioned, oh, people are going to be in blue jean and a polo. Guess what? That is too strict and too rigid for a startup. You might get interviewed by someone who is in a sports jersey. Well, or if you go to an interview to the office, you might see that these guys might be playing ping pong or throwing passes, or that there is music. And if you don't, it is not that you don't belong, but if your job experience was the opposite, jack and tie, no music, seriousness, well, that doesn't mean that you cannot, you won't feel comfortable. You have to be open-minded. And today, let's say about generation. You and I are from a generation which is different from younger generations. And younger generations have a different point of view of
Yes.
things, or what's supposed to be in an office, how am I going to supposed to interview. So if you are expecting to have a certain kind of interview, be open-minded to something really different. Once I was interviewing a startup that I didn't get the job, but I was interviewed in a round panel of 12 people. 12 men for an hour.
Wow.
As I saw the Zooms, many different people, all camera on, and let's say bring it on. And I said something at the beginning that is down because I saw that many people were uncomfortable of being there because they used to be, I don't know, one, two, or three people. I don't know who decided to be all 12 of them, but I say if I knew that many people will be interviewing me, well, I will bring a team so we could be you know uh, in this
In
kind of
equal
way.
numbers.
Yeah, equal numbers, and some of them laughed and they is down, and I took control of that meeting. But you had to be open-minded. Everybody's different, so you had to be respectful. You had to be thoughtful of the time, and as a candidate, and also as an interviewer. But I think people who does that will get a good time at
Yeah.
these interviews.
Absolutely. Be self-aware of how you're behaving around everyone from the very top to the lowest person in the organization, up and down, left and right. be a nice person. It'll improve your odds on the job interview.
Indeed, indeed. Great, great, Chris. Nice topic that we discussed today, and I'll see you next time.
Very good. Take care of yourself.